Hello folks, my name is Robert Draper. I am the content creator of this channel, and I'd like to bring a couple of salient points to you before you start watching this. Yes, it is AI generated. I think it did a pretty good job of taking about 4 hours of some of my videos and condensing it down into about 20 minutes. However, AI being AI, I want to spank it occasionally because it left out a couple of key points. And the first one is very critical, is that Jesus Christ is absolute key and anchor of this discovery of another form of time, which is relevant to our age. The other one is that a man named of Enoch wasn't mentioned at all. And I believe that he is instrumental in the creation and design of the Great Pyramid of Giza, he or his kinfolk. So those are the two things, and also there's about 60 images of ancient coins. Be a little bit patient. These coins are, most of them, a little over 2,000 years old, some of them much older, including some Sumerian tablets. So enjoy, and I will be back in at the very end for a little bit of a treat, I believe. See you later. God love, thanks.
Physical money is getting rare, but if you have one, look at it. To you, it is probably just, I don't know, a piece of metal. Maybe you use it to scratch a lottery ticket or grab a shopping cart at the grocery store.
Or it's just economics. Or pocket lint.
But, and this is wild, to an ancient Babylonian or an Egyptian or a Roman citizen, the equivalent of that coin wasn't just money. It was literally a functioning, multi-layered, 48-chapter map of the entire universe.
It really is a complete paradigm shift.
Yeah.
Because, well, today we are unpacking a truly fascinating set of research for this deep dive. It's a slide deck titled The Lost Architecture of Time, Decoding Ancient Coins.
And I'm so excited for this one.
Me too. And the central premise here is that modern humans, we are walking around with these profound limitations on how we perceive reality. Specifically, how we perceive time.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because the analogy the presentation uses to explain our modern limitation is just brilliant.
The horse blinders.
Yes, the horse blinders.
Yeah.
Think about reading a massive epic novel, right? But the way we look at time today is like reading that book through a tiny magnifying glass, one single word at a time.
You see the sequence.
Right, exactly. This word, then the next word, then the next. But we have absolutely no idea what the overarching plot is. We are completely blind to the bigger picture.
And the slide deck compares that to a racehorse wearing those leather blinders.
Oh, yeah.
Those little cups they strap to the side of the horse's eyes. They intentionally eliminate all peripheral vision. It forces the animal to look strictly forward down this narrow tunnel.
So the horse becomes, what do they call it, blinded to center?
Yes, blinded to center. It's
Yeah.
entirely unaware of the stadium, the crowd, the whole environment around it. And the research pairs that image with the scientific reality of the electromagnetic spectrum, which is, a great way to think about it.
That part really puts human arrogance into perspective, honestly. We walk into a room, we look around, and we just assume we are seeing the totality of reality.
When in fact, human eyes only perceive a microscopic sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum. We see visible light, sure, but we are utterly blind to, radio waves, microwaves, infrared, ultraviolet, gamma rays.
Just bouncing all around us constantly.
Exactly. We mistake a tiny fraction of reality for the whole thing. And the researchers argue we do the exact same thing with time.
Because we view time as purely chronological. I mean, you look at the digital clock on your smartphone and you just watch the numbers change. 8 o'clock turns into 8:01.
It's just a sequence.
Right. Even a standard analog clock with the sweeping hands, it's just measuring a linear sequence of events running out. We are wearing those horse blinders, hyper-focused on the ticking seconds and completely missing the architecture of where we actually are.
But the ancient world did not wear those blinders. They viewed time through a concept called kairos.
Kairos.
Right. And kairos wasn't a ticking sequence of seconds. It was a physical cosmic architecture. Visually, the ancients represented kairos time as a complete interconnected wheel.
And the sources break this wheel down into a very specific anatomy, too. It's not just a basic circle. It consists of 3 intersecting axes.
Yes, the kairos wheel is built on a physical axis, a spiritual axis, and a mankind axis.
Okay, so breaking that down. The physical axis, that represents the tangible clockwork of the heavens, right? Like the literal movement of celestial bodies.
Correct. The physical gears of the universe. And then the spiritual axis represents the unseen divine pattern, or, the intended destiny behind those physical movements.
And then the mankind axis is where we come in.
The best part.
Yeah, it's the active intersection where human choice, historical eras, collective action, all of that actually engages with the cosmic pattern. So you need all three overlapping to really understand Kairos. You need physical gears, the unseen purpose, and the human journey.
And what is genuinely staggering about this specific three-axis Kairos wheel is how universal it is. I mean, we're not talking about one clever astronomer in one isolated culture.
No, the slide deck shows this exact same geometric blueprint repeating across civilizations that had absolutely zero contact with one another, which is mind-blowing.
It really is. You find this exact wheel structure carved into the massive sandstone ceiling of the Egyptian Dendera zodiac.
Wow.
You find the same structural geometry in Babylonian and Sumerian stone reliefs. You see it across the ocean in the Aztec circular calendar. It serves as the framework for the Buddhist Dharma chakra.
It even bled into modern architecture and flags. The presentation overlays this ancient Kairos wheel onto St. Peter's Square in Rome, and the geometry matches perfectly.
It's undeniable.
Yeah, and it's even the structural basis for the intersecting lines of the British Union Jack. I mean, this blueprint is literally hiding in plain sight all over the world.
Which, of course, introduces a massive logistical dilemma.
Oh, for sure.
Right, because if this highly specific architectural view of time was a universal truth, how did it spread? How did empires separated by vast oceans, hostile borders, thousands of years, how did they maintain and communicate this exact same cosmic map?
Right, because an Aztec priest couldn't just email the blueprint to a Babylonian astronomer.
No, they could not.
There had to be a physical vehicle carrying this complex data across the globe. And here's where I kind of have to push back on the source material, or at least, play the skeptic for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because the researchers claim they unlocked this universal map through numismatics, which is the study of ancient coins.
The physical evidence is all in the currency.
Yeah, and I'm going to need you to connect those dots for me, because it sounds like quite a leap. We are talking about the profound lost secrets of the universe, the grand architecture of human destiny, and you're telling me it was stamped on pocket lint.
I know how it sounds.
Like, why wouldn't kings hide this knowledge in giant guarded stone temples? A Roman emperor putting an image on a coin usually just boils down to ancient political marketing. Like, how do we know this isn't just a ruler saying, look at my face, I'm in charge?
Well, because propaganda changes every time a new ruler takes the throne. A new king wants his own face, his own victories, his own slogans on the money. But the researchers found that these specific cosmic symbols did not change. They remained consistent across entirely disconnected empires for millennia.
Really? For millennia?
Yes. To understand why it was on the coins, we have to reframe what a coin actually was to the ancient mind. Today, a coin is an afterthought. But in antiquity, coins were the only form of mass media.
Ah, so it was like the internet of the ancient world.
Precisely. There were no printing presses, no broadcast networks, no daily newspapers. If a ruling class needed to broadcast a complex message, validate their era, or signal their alignment with the cosmos to millions of people, a stone temple does them no good.
Because stone temples don't travel.
Exactly. But a coin travels in the pocket of every merchant, every mercenary, and every citizen across the known world. It was a viral information delivery system.
Okay, actually, the mass media angle makes a lot of sense. A temple stays in one city, but a coin goes everywhere trade goes. So how did the researchers actually decipher this? Like, where did they start reading this viral media?
Well, the investigation began surprisingly late in history, actually, with the jetons of Louis XIV of France.
Jetons?
Yeah, jetons. They were essentially calculation tokens, or coin-like metals used by the treasury and the ruling class. They weren't standard currency, but they were heavily stamped with these intricate allegories. And as the researchers started decoding the symbols on these 17th century French tokens, they noticed patterns that forced the scope of the research to expand violently backward in time.
So they pulled on a thread in France, and the whole global sweater unraveled.
That is exactly what happened.
Yeah.
The sources list a staggering variety of origins. We're talking Greek, Roman, Egyptian, Babylonian, Portuguese, Indian, Mexican, Spanish. And across all of them, researchers tracked very specific, recurring iconographies. For instance, the image of the chimera, a mythical two-headed lion, or figures prominently holding the scales of justice.
Right.
These were not just decorative flourishes or local folklore. They were a shared, continuous visual language communicating the Cairo's architecture.
Okay, so if we want to actually read the language on this ancient mass media, we have to understand what the symbols are pointing to in the sky. And the presentation is extremely careful to clear up a major modern misconception before diving into the celestial mechanics.
Yes, and this is a vital distinction. Because when a modern person hears words like zodiac or constellations, their brain immediately jumps to astrology.
Oh, 100%.
They picture flipping to the back of a magazine to read their daily horoscope, trying to figure out if their sign means they'll, get a promotion at work this week.
Right. Like, I'm a Taurus, so I shouldn't make any big financial decisions on a Tuesday.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But the research explicitly states this ancient system is not astrology. It has absolutely nothing to do with predicting a single individual's daily fate or personality traits.
Okay.
This map is entirely focused on the overarching fate of mankind as a collective whole. And actually, the word zodiac itself has been misunderstood. The ancient Hebrew root of the word is zodi, which simply translates to a path or steps.
A physical path that we are all walking together. And the sources point out that this concept of the zodiac is incredibly old. Like, it predates Babylon. It's likely antediluvian, meaning it existed before the great flood myths recorded in early human history.
And this path is not just some vague, mystical concept. It occupies a highly specific physical location in space. Astronomers call it the ecliptic.
The ecliptic?
Yes, it is a narrow, confined band in the heavens that contains our solar system, the zodiac constellations, and the axis of the universe. The fly deck calls it a very special neighborhood.
And here's where it gets really interesting, because the sources use an analogy that perfectly explains the mechanics of this neighborhood, and I want you to visualize this with me. Imagine you are wearing a standard circular analog wristwatch.
Okay.
Hold your arm out and look at the watch directly face on. You see the whole glass circle, all the numbers, the hands sweeping around.
Right, and looking at the night sky, it's like looking at the entire chaotic universe. It's a massive dome of stars everywhere you look. It's completely overwhelming and basically impossible to navigate.
Right. But now, take that watch off your wrist. Hold it right in front of your eyes, but turn it completely sideways.
Okay.
You aren't looking at the face anymore. You are just looking at the flat, thin edge of the glass and the metal casing. You are looking at the profile of the watch.
And that flat, narrow edge is the ecliptic.
Exactly, because our solar system isn't a giant sphere. It's basically a flat plate.
Yeah.
The planets don't orbit above or below the sun in random chaotic loops. They all orbit on that exact same flat, narrow plane.
Which makes sense.
Yeah. So, while the universe above and below that line might be vast and empty, looking sideways reveals the specific band where all the cosmic action actually happens.
It is a stunning way to visualize it. And once you isolate that flat band, the zodi, you can start to map the path. The ancients mapped this narrow band using 12 main constellations. Returning to your watch analogy, each of those 12 constellations acts like an hour marker on your 12-hour watch face.
But the map doesn't stop at 12. This is where the depth of the architecture really reveals itself.
Right. They didn't just look at the main 12. Around each of those 12-hour markers, they grouped a triangle of 3 additional supporting constellations. And this grouping is called a decan.
A decan. Let me make sure I understand how a decan functions. If the main constellation is the broad subject, the 3 supporting constellations provide the context.
Think of it like reading a chapter in a book. The main constellation is the title of the chapter, setting the scene. The 3 decans are the paragraphs within that chapter that tell you what actually happens. The action, the consequence, the narrative movement.
Okay, so let's do the math on that. You have the 12 main constellations.
Right.
Each of those has 3 decans attached to it. 12 times 3 is 36.
Correct.
Plus the original 12, that equals 48.
Exactly 48. The ancients divided this flat cosmic plane into 48 distinct readable parts. They transformed the random scattering of stars into a chronological narrative about the journey of mankind. It is literally a 48-chapter storybook in the sky.
And they were taking chapters from that cosmic storybook and stamping them onto the coins in their pockets.
Exactly.
But this raises a huge logistical question for me. If you hand me a circular watch face with 48 chapters on it, where do I start reading? I mean, a circle has no natural beginning or end. We need a way to break the code.
Well, every map needs a you are here marker, right? And every cycle needs a starting line. The ancients defined these entry points very clearly. They called them stargates.
Stargates.
Specifically, they identified the constellations Gemini and its immediate next-door neighbor on the cosmic path, Taurus, as the entry points.
Stargates. It sounds like science fiction, but it's ancient astronomy. Why Gemini and Taurus?
To understand the mechanics of the stargates, we have to look back at the physical axis of that Kairos wheel we discussed earlier. Remember the intersecting lines inside the circle?
Yeah, the structural beam cutting across the wheel.
Yes. The physical axis is essentially a horizontal corridor that cuts straight across our cosmic watch face. Out of the 12 main constellations, this axis relies on 4. On the east side of the watch, you have Gemini sitting at the 3 o'clock position and Taurus sitting right below it at the 4 o'clock position.
Okay, visualizing the watch face sideways, 3 and 4 o'clock on the east side. Got it.
And directly across the wheel, on the west side, you have Sagittarius sitting at the 9 o'clock position and Scorpio at the 10 o'clock position. The line connecting those eastern and western pairs forms the physical axis. It creates a literal beam across the heavens. But the absolute anchor of this entire system, the true front door to the 48-chapter story, is Gemini. Gemini is the key.
Now, this has been bugging me since I reviewed the source material. If we are using a standard watch face as our mental model, and Gemini is sitting at the 3 o'clock position, why on earth is it the starting line?
That's a great question.
Why wouldn't the story start at 12 o'clock, right at the top, like every chronological clock we use today?
The answer involves both deep symbolic meaning and hard astronomical reality. Symbolically, Gemini is the constellation of the twins. And in ancient mythology, one twin is mortal and the other is divine.
Ah, so it represents duality.
Exactly. It represents the fundamental duality of the human condition itself, the intersection of flesh and spirit, of earth and the heavens. It is the perfect conceptual starting point for the mankind axis. But astronomically, the importance of Gemini is even more undeniable. If you look at the decans associated with Gemini, those 3 supporting chapters we talked about.
Right, the paragraphs of the chapter.
Right. One of them contains Sirius.
And Sirius is the brightest visible star in the entire night sky.
It is a blazing beacon. You cannot ignore it. Because of this powerful combination, the profound symbolism of the mortal and divine twins, coupled with the undeniable physical brilliance of Sirius acting as a spotlight, the ancients firmly believed that human souls, historical eras, and major world events were literally birthed into existence at the Gemini Stargate.
Wow. That completely flips how you think about tracking time. It's not starting at 12 o'clock just because 12 is at the top of the circle. It starts at 3 o'clock because that is the literal physical doorway where the cosmic action enters our realm.
And we don't have to guess or assume that the ancients believed this because they left us the receipts. The physical proof is sitting right there in the numismatics.
The viral mass media.
The sources highlight a specific category of currency known as Gemini types. A brilliant example of this comes from the kings of Pergamon, specifically King Eumenes II, who ruled from 197 to 159 BC.
Pergamon was a massive center of ancient learning and culture. So what did Eumenes put on his money?
Well, if you examine a silver coin minted under his reign over 2,000 years ago, you don't just see a vanity portrait of the king. The coin prominently features images of twins. It features physical pillars, which architecturally represent a gateway or a stargate. It features specific birds and prominently placed stars that align with the decans.
Think about the consequence of that. A citizen walking through a market in 160 BC pulls out a silver coin to buy bread. They look at the twins, the pillars, and the stars. They aren't just verifying the weight of the silver, they are reading a timestamp.
They are reading their exact coordinates in the universe. King Eumenes II was using the mass media of his day to broadcast to the entire known world, we are in the era of Gemini. We are at the Stargate. This is where we are in the 48-chapter story.
That is just phenomenal. Let's pull all of these threads together because we have covered a massive paradigm shift today. We started with this realization that modern humans are basically trapped behind horse blinders. We view time through a tiny magnifying glass, reading the chronological sequence of ticking seconds, completely blind to the larger plot.
While the ancient world saw the totality of Kairos, time as a multidimensional architectural wheel.
And it wasn't just a philosophical idea, it was mapped onto physical reality. They located this story on the ecliptic, that flat, sideways profile of our solar system. They divided that path into 48 chapters using the constellations and their decans. They identified the Gemini Stargate at the 3 o'clock position as the cosmic front door. And most incredibly, they ensured this massive blueprint wasn't lost by stamping it onto the loose change in everyone's pocket.
It really completely dismantles the idea that ancient people were somehow less sophisticated than we are. I mean, they were profoundly grounded in their universe.
So, what does this actually mean for you, navigating the modern world? It means that the next time you look at the digital calendar on your phone, you should recognize that you are looking at a deeply flattened, stripped-down illusion. Your sense of what we call time isn't a ticking clock running out. It is actually a deeply profound sense of place in a massive, structured, cosmic neighborhood.
And that reality introduces a rather urgent question to leave you with today. We've seen how ancient civilizations used their everyday physical currency as a viral tool to keep their citizens anchored to the cosmos.
Yeah.
Every time they engaged in trade, they held a physical map of the 48-chapter story in the palm of their hands.
They were constantly reminded of where they were.
Exactly. So what happens to us now? I mean, as modern society rapidly moves toward purely digital currency, as money becomes invisible, frictionless numbers on a screen, do we lose our last physical anchor? If the ancients used tangible coins to align their empires with the architecture of time, what happens to a civilization that abandons the physical medium entirely? Do we finally permanently lose the map?
Wow. That is a brilliant and honestly slightly terrifying thought to end on. It makes you realize that breaking the sequence and taking those blinders off might be more important now than it ever has been in human history.
All right, that is the presentation. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Couple brief points. All those images you saw is actually one image, what I call the mothership. This is this other form of time that went under different names around the world, but it's a unified symbol, and Christ is woven all throughout it. I've actually written a small book about it on Amazon Kindle. It's called Time's Masquerade. So if you go there, I think it's moderately priced for what I'm offering. Anyway, God love, I appreciate your interest. Thank you.